They were laughing while my baby struggled to breathe. Ring lights glowing, lip gloss shining, a TikTok draft looping endlessly in the background. I moved toward the outlet. The oxygen monitor had been unplugged, its wires hung loosely, like forgotten promises. "Don't touch that," my sister snapped. I froze, my hand just inches from the plug. "She needs to post her TikTok," my mother added with a dismissive wave. "That beeping can wait." My son, barely 4 pounds, his lungs as delicate as mist, began to twitch. The monitor, still disconnected, should have been screaming. And when it finally did, they rolled their eyes. "She's being dramatic again," my niece said, spinning into another choreographed pose, completely unbothered. Then he turned blue. His chest rose and fell like a broken machine. My father didn't move. Didn't blink. "Maybe it's better this way," he muttered. "The weak don't deserve to live." Something shifted in me. Not loud. Not angry. Just a quiet break, like the sound of a lock clicking open. The sound of a woman deciding she's never going back. I reached for the plug to reconnect the monitor. My sister grabbed my wrist midair. "Don't ruin her moment," she hissed. I looked at her. The same girl I used to share secrets with. But now, all I saw were teeth. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I stepped back, took out my phone, and hit record. Then I whispered, 911. My child can't breathe. And my family just unplugged his oxygen to charge a phone. As the sirens blared through the speaker, my niece kept twirling, still laughing. She had no idea what was coming. But I did. "My name is Rachel Monroe. And if you think you know how this ends, stay with me. What happens when a mother has to choose between her family and her child?" The paramedics arrived in under 3 minutes. But in betrayal time, that's a lifetime. I stood there and watched them push past ring lights and glitter. I watched my mother gasp as though she were the one under attack. Wait, it's just a misunderstanding," she cried, trying to grab the arm of one of the medics. But they didn't stop. And neither did I. They ignored her protests. I pointed to the unplugged monitor, still lifeless, and then to the corner of the room where my son lay trembling. His lips were blue. "He stopped breathing," I said calmly. "The outlet was used to charge a phone." One of the paramedics looked at the charger, then at the half-lit screen showing a paused TikTok draft. Then he glanced at my father, and maybe it was the way my father didn't flinch, didn't even look away, like guilt didn't register as a language he understood. Then they moved. One medic went straight to the oxygen. Another checked my son's vitals. A third turned to me and said, "You did the right thing. If you hadn't called, he might not have survived." And that's when I realized my phone was still recording. Not a TikTok. My recording, capturing every word, every moment. My mother's dismissiveness. My father's cruelty. My sister's grip on my wrist. The laughter. The indifference. The truth. My niece finally walked over, starting to piece it together. "You didn't actually send that, did you?" she asked, her voice a whisper. I turned the phone so she could see the progress bar climbing, uploading to Drive, to the cloud, to backup. "Not yet," I whispered. The police arrived within minutes. My mother tried again. "She's exaggerating," she said, trying to sound composed. "That monitor's always beeping. We didn't mean any harm." But the officers weren't listening to her anymore. They were listening to my son's shallow, struggling breaths. To the medic saying firmly, "Get Child Protective Services on the line. This is beyond neglect." That's when my father finally spoke. "You called the cops on your own family," he said, as if he couldn't believe it. I looked him straight in the eye. "You unplugged my son's oxygen for a TikTok." Then I handed my phone to the officer. "Everything's on here." He took it without a word, just a nod. And right then, I understood. After all the years I had stayed silent, the silence I was raised to swallow was about to bury them. By nightfall, the house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a crime scene, because that's exactly what it was. Yellow tape sealed off the nursery door. The same door my mother had painted bright yellow when I brought my son home from the NICU. Now she stood outside it, pacing in circles, crying, not for my son, but for herself. "They're treating us like criminals," she whispered, her voice sharp with disbelief. As if they weren't. My niece was still filming, whispering to her followers on a live stream, "My aunt's trying to ruin my life." I didn't respond. I wasn't thinking about TikTok anymore. I was busy preparing legal copies of the footage, on flash drives, backup drives, 3 in total. One was already in my lawyer's hands. My son was now lying in a hospital crib, stable and breathing on his own. The nurse told me he flinched every time the lights were turned off. His last memory of home had been darkness and panic. I stood beside him and whispered, "Not again. Not ever." Then I opened my email, attached the footage, and pressed send. One to Child Protective Services. One to the local news outlet. And one to the talent agency my niece had been begging to notice her. I wasn't the one ending her dreams. She did that herself. Subject line: Behind the filter, the truth about your newest influencer. I attached the full, uncut clip. No caption needed. The footage said everything. By morning, it had over 4 million views. The comments were merciless. "She stepped over a dying baby for a TikTok. This family doesn't need therapy. They need to be charged. Where's CPS?" By noon, reporters had gathered outside their house. My sister called, crying. I told her the truth. "You ruined her future," she sobbed. "No," I replied. "She tried to end mine." Then I hung up. By day's end, the agency released an official statement. "We do not support or represent individuals involved in child endangerment. Effective immediately, all partnerships are terminated." And just like that, the ring lights in their house dimmed. But my world, it began to brighten. Because the same voice I had been taught to silence was now echoing across the internet, calling for justice. The courtroom was filled with dust and quiet tension. My mother wore pearls, as if jewelry could excuse negligence. My father didn't bother dressing up, just sat there, stiff, vacant, incomplete. My niece, without makeup or filters, looked hollow. No phone, no camera, just the wide-eyed realization that likes won't save you in real life. The judge reviewed the evidence, footage, medical records, CPS reports, then leaned back in her chair. "I have one question for the defendants," she said, scanning their faces. "What part of that child's suffering did you find funny?" No one spoke. Not even my mother. No excuses. No jokes misread. No, we didn't mean it. Just silence. The kind that exposes everything. My lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we're requesting full restraining orders, a no-contact clause, and immediate placement on the child neglect registry." The judge nodded. "Granted. Effective immediately." My mother gasped like she'd just been stabbed. "You can't do this. We're family." I stood. "No. We're a bloodline. Family requires humanity." Then I handed the court officer one last envelope. The judge raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" "A second video," I said. "Dated months ago. Footage from a baby cam they didn't know I kept." The room held its breath as the clip played. My father, tossing a blanket over my son's incubator to quiet him. My sister, yelling at me for turning the oxygen back on. My mother, sipping wine, indifferent. The courtroom gasped. The judge slammed the gavel. "I'm elevating this case to criminal negligence. An immediate investigation will begin." And just like that, the people who unplugged my child's oxygen for a TikTok were now facing felony charges. Outside, reporters swarmed the courthouse. My lawyer turned to me. "Would you like to make a statement?" I looked at the cameras and whispered, "I'm not a hero. I'm just a mother who finally pressed play." My house once echoed with their voices. Now, it's filled with lullabies and quiet, steady breaths. My son sleeps peacefully, his chest rising and falling, monitored by machines, safe in a home that doesn't require apologies to survive. Meanwhile, across town, my sister's face is plastered across every screen. TikTok influencer turned cautionary tale. Family charged after viral video reveals dangerous neglect. I didn't need to say anything. The world had seen it all. Even brands that once courted her were now distancing themselves. We had no idea she was involved in something this cruel. Their golden girl now trended under a different tag. #oxygen for likes. My mother tried texting, "Please talk to us." It got out of hand. I didn't reply. Instead, I emailed the property lawyer, because here's what they never realized. The house they lived in, still under my name. Years ago, after my father lost his job, they used my credit to refinance. I signed those papers out of guilt, because I thought family meant sacrifice. Now, I knew better. So I sold it. Every wall they painted, every mirror they danced in front of, gone. I didn't warn them. At exactly 2 p.m., the new owner arrived with movers. My mother screamed on the lawn. My niece sobbed in the driveway. My father threatened the realtor until police escorted him off the property. And me. I sat 2 blocks away, in my car, feeding my son his bottle, holding his little fingers, whispering, "You'll grow up in a home where love never comes second to someone's Wi-Fi signal." Later that evening, a news anchor spoke over footage of my child in the hospital. The baby seen in the now viral video is recovering well. Sources confirm he remains in the full custody of his mother. My lawyer looked over at me and smiled. Justice wasn't just served. It was documented, uploaded, backed up, and finally, believed. You've become the face of maternal justice. But I didn't want fame. I wanted peace. Still, if the price of peace was exposing the truth, then let the world hear it all. It began with one interview. A quiet studio. A soft-spoken journalist. My son asleep in my arms. She asked, "Why did you hit record?" I paused, not for drama, not for effect, just long enough to feel the weight of the answer. Because I knew they wouldn't believe me without proof. She nodded gently. That night, the segment aired on local primetime television. By sunrise, it was everywhere. National headlines. Mother records shocking neglect to save infant son. Family now facing criminal charges. #oxygen for likes goes viral. Public outrage mounts. And then the messages began. From mothers. From nurses. From strangers who had lived through quiet horrors and swallowed their pain. "Thank you for not staying silent. You made me brave enough to walk away. My daughter finally called 911 after watching your video." I didn't know how to respond. So I just kept doing what I knew, telling the truth. My second interview aired nationally, on a morning show. The host asked, "Do you have anything to say to your family?" I looked into the camera and said, "This isn't revenge. It's protection, for every child who couldn't press record." After that, the calls came in. Sponsors, non-profits, foundations. A pediatric wellness organization offered to fund a full-time, in-home nurse for my son. Another invited me to speak at their summit on digital abuse and neglect. Suddenly, the woman they once mocked for being too sensitive was now the face of something bigger. But the moment that mattered most came at 2 a.m. My son stirred in his crib. I walked over. The oxygen monitor blinked softly, quiet, steady, strong. I leaned down and kissed his cheek. And he smiled. Not a reflex. A real smile. The kind that says, I feel safe. That's when I knew they had stolen a lot from me, but not from him. He still had wonder, still had breath, still had me. The courtroom was full this time. Reporters, advocates, even a senator's aide scribbling notes in the back row. My sister sat at the defense table. No lashes, no spotlight, just the fading shadow of everything she built and destroyed. My mother looked older now. She searched the room for sympathy and found none. And my father, he didn't show up at all. Word was, he'd skipped town after the house was sold. As for me, I didn't come in with makeup or a power suit. Just a simple pendant around my neck, the same one my son clutched in the NICU before he even had a name. The judge read the charges aloud. Felony child endangerment, criminal negligence, violation of medical safety protocols. My sister cried, but not for my son. Her tears were for the life she lost. Her lawyer pleaded for leniency, calling it a moment of poor judgment. Then the prosecutor played the video again. This wasn't poor judgment. It was cruelty, caught in high definition. The judge didn't flinch. Her ruling was swift and clear. You are hereby sentenced to 2 years probation, mandatory counseling, and permanent placement on the National Child Neglect Registry. My mother gasped. My sister broke down. And then, something unexpected. The judge turned to me. Miss Monroe, do you have a final statement? I stood. My heart thudded. My breath slow. I didn't look at the judge. I turned to my mother. I begged you, I said. Not just that night. My whole life. I begged you. And you chose silence. You chose convenience. You chose them. Then I turned to my sister. You danced over my child's body. I hope you remember that when no brand returns your emails. Finally, I faced the room. And to anyone watching, anyone wondering if they should press record too, I lifted my phone. Do it. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. Your proof is just waiting to be believed. There was a moment of quiet, then a soft ripple of applause, gentle, like justice letting out a breath. Outside, flashbulbs lit the sky. My lawyer leaned in. They want to make your story into a documentary. I nodded, but my thoughts were already at home, with a baby wrapped in warmth, breathing steadily. It's been a year. My son walks now. Wobbly steps. Gummy smile. Arms up like every moment deserves a standing ovation. We moved to a small town, one where no one points and says, that baby from the video. Here, he's just Noah. Strong. Curious. Unbroken. The oxygen monitor is framed now, sitting in a shadow box on the wall. The wires are still frayed where I found them. But now they look like armor. A reminder. Survival doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it wheezes first. My mother sent one last letter. No apology. Just a single line, scrawled in shaky handwriting. You were never meant to be a mother. She was right. I wasn't meant to be a mother. I was meant to be his. My sister vanished from the internet. No brand would touch her. She tried applying for jobs under new usernames. Didn't matter. Because the moment she pulled that plug, she silenced her future. I still receive messages. From survivors. From strangers. From women with trembling hands and whisper quiet courage. And I answer every single one. Because someone once believed me, even when I couldn't speak. Now I speak, so others don't have to scream. One night, Noah fell asleep in my arms. His tiny hand curled around the pendant he once clutched in the NICU. And I whispered into the stillness, "Thank you for fighting." To him, to myself, to every mother who picked up a phone instead of looking away. Then I turned off the lights, and in the dark, the monitor blinked. Softly, faithfully, still steady.